the final illusion, not of reality, not of time, but of the self. Because somewhere between your thoughts and your awareness, between your memories and your witness, a phantom has taken your name. The brain doesn't find identity, it generates it. A brilliant hallucination. A constantly updating narrative stitched together from neurons, signals, and survival. Modern neuroscience has uncovered it, the default mode network. Your internal storyteller, weaving meaning from chaos, crafting the illusion that you are a singular, unbroken self. But what happens when the story breaks? Buddhists spoke of it as no self. Mystics called it ego death. Philosophers called it the constructed I. Today, we call it the phantom self. This isn't nihilism. This is awakening. Because once you see the self as illusion, you don't vanish. You emerge. Not as the name you've clung to, not as the roles you perform, but as the vast open field of awareness that was always watching, even when you forgot it was there. This is not just a video, it's an invitation to look behind the mask, to pause the performance, to witness the awareness you've always been. So ask yourself, are you ready to meet the you that was never born and will never die? Who or what are you? Not your name, not your story, not your face in the mirror. Strip all of it away and something remains. But what if that something isn't solid at all? What if the self, the center of your experience, is not a thing, but a process, not a being, but a becoming? Modern neuroscience is quietly suggesting something ancient mystics once whispered. That the self we clutch so tightly might be no more real than a shadow. A convenient illusion spun by the brain to keep the organism alive. And yet, this phantom feels real. It suffers. It longs. It plans. It says I with such authority you never question it. But today, we will. Inside your brain, there is no single location where your self resides. There's no control room, no thinker behind the thoughts. Neuroscientists can scan every fold of the cortex, every synapse firing, and still, no you. Instead, what they find is a pattern. A dynamic shifting network of neural activity constantly updating based on prediction, memory, and sensation. It's like watching a murmuration of birds, fluid, beautiful, coordinated, but with no leader. This network generates what cognitive scientists call a self-model, an internal simulation of who you are that helps the brain navigate a complex world. But like a map, it is not the territory. It's not you. It's a useful fiction. And here's the catch. The more we believe the fiction, the more we suffer. Because the phantom self lives in fear of dissolution. It clings to identity, craves control, resists change. It believes it is the protagonist of reality. But if it's just a process, a pattern of electrical storms flickering in a meat machine, then who's watching all of this unfold? Let's slow down. Take a breath. Can you notice the voice in your head right now? The one reading this, the one commenting on what's being said, the one that says, I'm me. Now ask, who's aware of that voice? There it is, awareness, not a thought, not a story, just pure witnessing. The phantom self cannot find that awareness because it's not an object, it's not a thing the mind can point to, because it's not in the mind, and yet, it's what's most undeniably you. In ancient traditions, this was known as the false self. In Buddhism, it's anatta, non-self. In Advaita Vedanta, it's the ego illusion. Even in Western psychology, thinkers like Jung and James explored the idea that the ego was a mask, not the actor. But today, neuroscience is catching up. Studies of brain injury, split brain patients, and the default mode network all hint at the same mystery. The self can fragment, shift, disappear, and yet awareness remains. So what is the self, if not stable? Is it a story held together by memory, a survival algorithm, a linguistic habit? Or is it something more poetic? A flame that never burns in the same shape twice. A dream the brain keeps redreaming so you don't forget how to be? In this episode, we're going to follow that question. Down the neural corridors and philosophical depths, across cultures and cutting-edge science, into the silence that remains when the I finally lets go. If the self is a story, then who's the storyteller? The brain, it turns out, is a prolific narrator. It stitches sensations, memories, and meaning into a cohesive timeline we call me. Like a novelist crafting character arcs, your brain retrofits causality. It makes sense of the past, not because that sense was always there, but because it needs a coherent thread to move forward. You remember a childhood moment and say, "That shaped me." But was it always meaningful? Or did your present identity reach backward in time and give it meaning? Neuroscientists have shown that memory is less like a video file and more like a remix. Each time you recall something, you're not retrieving the past. You're reconstructing it. Yourself is doing the same thing, not remembering, but rehearsing, not discovering, but performing. The default mode network, the area of the brain most active during introspection, mind-wandering, and narrative thought, lights up when we're being ourselves. But here's the twist. When monks meditate, when people experience ego dissolution on psychedelics, or during deep flow states, the default mode network quietly dims. And what's left? Not confusion, not panic, but often peace. A quiet sense of presence, unburdened by the constant narration of identity. In those moments, the phantom self loosens its grip. And what emerges is a kind of clarity, a wordless knowing that you are not your story, not your roles, not your beliefs, but the open field in which those things arise. Let's return to that earlier question. If the self is an illusion, who's being fooled? This is where it gets mystical, or maybe just beautifully circular. Because the brain, the body, the environment, they all co-arise. There is no separate thinker behind the thought. The thought thinks itself, and the illusion of I forms around it. But again, if you can see the illusion, you're not entirely inside it. Awareness is not the character, it's the stage. You are not the waves of the mind. You are the ocean underneath. In one famous study, neuroscientists found that decisions register in the brain before the subject becomes consciously aware of choosing. That is, the body begins to act, and only later does the mind construct a narrative of, "I chose that." So much of what we think we are, our will, our intentions, our personality, may just be after-the-fact rationalizations. The phantom self walks into the room after the play is over and says, "I wrote the script." But there's freedom in seeing this. Because if you're not bound by your conditioning, if the I is not the master, then perhaps you're not as stuck as you thought. You can pause, you can observe. You can witness the you performing and smile at the mask, not to destroy it, but to wear it lightly. So how do we live with this knowledge? That we are, in a sense, both the actor and the stage? It begins with curiosity, with noticing when the self clings to identity, with recognizing how emotion, memory, and belief construct your current moment, and then with letting it be, not resisting the illusion but relaxing into it, knowing it's a dance, a play, a symphony with no conductor, yet perfect timing. This is not nihilism, it's liberation. Because once you see the phantom self, you realize you're not meant to kill it. You're meant to walk beside it, with compassion, with humor, with eyes open. You are not one self. You are many. There's the you that wakes up hopeful, the you that shrinks in doubt, the you that speaks with confidence in one room and with silence in another. And yet, all these shifting roles feel like a single thread. Why? Because the brain is a master weaver. It binds every flicker of emotion, every glance of memory, into the illusion of continuity. It edits out the cuts, smooths over the contradictions, and calls it identity. But what happens when that continuity breaks? When the illusion slips? Trauma, psychedelics, moments of extreme awe, all can tear holes in the narrative fabric. And through those gaps, many have glimpsed something wordless, a selfless self, a centerless awareness that holds it all without needing to be any of it. In psychology, this is echoed in the study of dissociation and multiplicity. The self can split. Fragments can emerge, parts with their own thoughts, voices, and memories. Yet even then, something notices. A deeper layer of being, untouched by the fragmentation. It watches, it remains. That's the mystery. Even when the I breaks apart, awareness does not, because awareness has no shape to lose. This is where science and spirituality begin to rhyme. In non-dual traditions, the self is said to be like the moon reflected in water. Visible, shimmering, persuasive, but intangible. You chase it, and the ripples only scatter it further. You still the water, and it appears effortlessly. Your I is the same. The more you seek it, define it, control it, the more it slips. But in stillness, in silence, you begin to see it. Not as something to grasp, but as something the mind projects. A survival function dressed up as identity. So here's a question most never ask. What would life feel like if you didn't need a self? Not in a pathological sense, but in a liberated one. What if presence was enough? The trees don't need a self to be green. The wind doesn't need identity to dance through a canyon. And maybe you don't need a story to be real. Maybe you've never been your thoughts. You've been the space between them. In Zen, there's a saying, "Show me your original face before your parents were born." This isn't a riddle with a clever answer. It's a pointer toward the part of you untouched by conditioning, memory, or language. Can you feel it now? The you before you was constructed. Before the timeline. Before the mask. It's not gone. It's just quiet. It's the space behind the roles you play. The stillness beneath the performance. And when you touch it, even for a moment, the grip of the phantom self softens. You realize, you are not the mask. You are the mirror. You are not the passing thoughts. You are the sky they pass through. And the sky is not trying to be anything. It simply is. You are not broken. Even if your thoughts spin stories of failure, even if your past feels heavy with shame, even if the self inside you feels hollow, fragile, or unreal, you are not broken. Because you are not the self that breaks. You are the space that holds it all. The phantom self may whisper of worthlessness, of regret, of identity collapse. But that voice is not the truth. It's an echo, a pattern, a hallucination the brain repeats because it once kept you safe. But survival isn't the same as awakening. And now, you are being invited to see through the ghost. Here's the secret. The illusion isn't the enemy. It's the veil. And veils don't need to be destroyed. They only need to be seen through. This is what the mystics knew. This is what the modern mind is beginning to remember. That the self is not your enemy. It's your art. You were never meant to find the real you as a fixed object. Because the real you is the awareness that sees all forms arise and fall. The you that remains when all roles dissolve. The witness that watches thoughts come and go without chasing or resisting. The open field of being that doesn't need to perform. So how do you live from that place? You begin by noticing, by watching the self in action, not judging, not fixing, just witnessing. Notice the I that wants to be admired, the one that wants to be right, the one that fears being unseen. Then look beneath it. Feel the stillness behind that craving. Touch the space where no identity is necessary, where breath moves on its own, where presence is enough. This is not detachment. It's intimacy with the moment so pure, the self can no longer stand in the way. And then, you return to the world, to relationships, to your name and your memories and your roles. But this time you wear them differently. You know their costumes, useful, beautiful, temporary. You become again the actor on the stage. But now you remember the silence before the first line, the emptiness after the final curtain. And in that remembering, there is freedom, not from the self, but from mistaking the self for all you are. The phantom self was never your enemy. It was your teacher. It led you into illusion so you could awaken. It showed you every mask so you could meet the face beneath. And now, the invitation is this. Don't cling, don't push, just see. You are not what you think. You are not who you believe. You are not the story, the memory, the voice, the face. You are the awareness holding it all, infinite, still, alive. And when you live from there, even the illusion becomes sacred. Even the phantom dances in the light. Next time on the Neural Nirvana series, we explore mystical states in the MRI, what science sees when the self dissolves. Until then, stay curious, stay conscious. If this stirred something inside you, subscribe, like, and share this with a fellow seeker.